Malcolm. I'm so glad to be with you today because we are going to talk about something I found quite intriguing the other day. Picture this. What if countries and cities started fighting over you, offering cash, land, and even your own laws just to get you to move there? From Canada and Mexico luring Mennonites with special privileges to Tulsa, Oklahoma, paying remote workers to relocate, targeted immigration is actually quietly reshaping the world, and it has been for maybe
Yeah,
hundreds
this is
of
a
years.
huge thing. I see many as fertility collapse is going on. And what
Mhm.
a lot of people, misunderstand about fertility collapse is they think it's a problem of warm bodies. It's not a problem of warm bodies. And we
No,
just
this is about
exposed
getting the people that you want to your country to do certain things.
right. So
But
you
the,
just
the whole thing that we need
well,
to talk about here is what makes a family or a community so desirable that governments compete to attract them. Like, people don't realize that this isn't just like, oh, we're opening our borders to solve this problem. No, it's we want Mennonites. We want bougie couples who are dinks. We
but
want.
let's talk about how this problem creates itself. Okay, so the problem
Mhm.
creates itself. It's uniquely bad now because it is the communities that are more economically productive and the groups that are more economically productive that are undergoing fertility rate collapse the fastest.
Yeah.
But in a historic context, you also had this problem. Luring one immigrant group into your country was not seen as the same as luring another immigrant group into your country.
Totally.
Some immigrant groups were seen as more desirable because they were more desirable. They
Mhm.
created more economic prosperity
Mhm.
or did more development than other groups.
Mhm.
So let's get into which groups are which.
Yeah, absolutely. And how in a post-demographic collapse world, you want your family culture to be such that you basically have your pick of the litter in terms of what country or charter city or techno-feudalist empire you go to.
Mhm.
Because you want the keys to the kingdom. You don't want to be that deformed post-apocalyptic family living in the borderlands. So just I want to also, like, this is, I think one thing that's important to talk about before we move forward is we recently had a podcast talking about how Hillary Clinton sort of espoused this idea that, well, it's immigrants who have all the kids, and the obvious solution to demographic collapse is immigration. And isn't it so crazy that the Trump administration is deporting people? And then one of our podcast followers tweeted at us a report in 2000 by the UN Population Division. It was titled "Replacement Migration is it a solution to declining and aging populations?" And this is definitely one of the most common rebuttals that we get to, oh no, population decline. And then the answer from so many mostly uninformed people is, oh, just solve it with immigration. There are many, many, many issues with that. But I do want to point out that even this 2000 report from the UN, which I would say is one of the more bullish groups on like immigration solving the
Yeah.
problem, plus also demographic collapse isn't a problem, it's going down slowly. And then they're always wrong with their projections. But basically that report explored the potential role of international immigration and migration in addressing population decline and aging. And the conclusion actually of the report is that while immigration can help mitigate the effects of the trends, the scale of migration required to significantly alter population size and age structure is likely unrealistic and potentially unsustainable. Now, that coming from the UN is basically them admitting it's not going to work at all. For them being like, well, it might not be sustainable to like really solve the problem, means that it really isn't going to work. But that doesn't mean that countries aren't going to try. And also, again, just because this is something that countries have turned to for a long time, and this is what I had no idea about, was these like niche examples also of targeted migration. So let's talk about Canada and Mennonites, okay? Because I just had no idea about this until yesterday when I started digging into it. So in the 1800s, so this is a long time ago, someone in Canada's government was like, those dudes, we want the Mennonites. How do we get these Mennonites? And they made this package of special privileges just to attract them. So they actively recruited Mennonites in the 1800s, particularly from Russia, interestingly, by offering what they called it a privilegium, a formal agreement, just like, I mean, really targeted for them. It guaranteed exemption from military service, the right to run private schools, religious freedom, and land grants for settlement. And they were designed both to attract hardworking agricultural settlers to develop Canadian West, which makes sense why they like targeted Russian Mennonites, because they're like, these dudes can handle the cold. They'll be okay.
Makes sense. Yeah. I was looking for a group of people to develop like Canadian agricultural land. Yeah, Russian Mennonites.
They're like the Scottish cows.
Oh,
Those,
sorry.
like,
People who don't know what the Mennonites are, it's like they're Anabaptists, which means they're related to the Amish. They're basically Amish.
They're slightly less strict than the Amish. So depending on the Mennonite group, and a lot of the groups that I've been looking at recently are much more conservative, almost Amish like in how strict they are. But you're more likely to see Mennonites owning cars, some select machinery. Like I think they're more consequentialist than deontological when it comes to Anabaptism, where they're like, all right, like this machine actually isn't that worldly. It's just helping me do my job. So I'm going to be okay with it. But anyway, the long-term impact and changes of this, it's interesting over time. So a bunch of Mennonites came over to Canada, and there still are a lot of Mennonites in Canada. But then over time, Canada started to erode these privileges, like especially concerning private education, which also was a problem with Indigenous populations. But no one talks about Canada and their immigrant populations. Those also had some rights to private education eroded. So I think that's also interesting that Canada was equal opportunity, and it's taking children and trying to homogenize them. So
No, I think they basically betrayed their Mennonite population.
they totally did, which led to significant Mennonite immigration from Canada to Mexico and South America in the 1920s. Also, during World War I, anti-German sentiment led to a temporary ban on Mennonite immigration. So Canada just got like super mean to Mennonites. But the original privilegium, that like set of that 1873 set of privileges that they used to target Russian Mennonites, remained a touchstone for Mennonite claims to conscientious objector status during both world wars. So they still got to use parts of it, just not all of it. And this, I just want to highlight for later discussion as we talk about what you need to be a desirable population and have the keys to the kingdom, is that you also have to be prepared for an erosion of promises made. And this is a theme that's just going to come up again and again. So let's now, okay, it's the 1920s, right? Canada's being a dick to the Mennonites. Where do they go? Well, Latin America is like, so these guys develop land and are productive, and they produce good agricultural goods. Like, I want them. So they started offering privilegium, and Mexico was one of the first to really get on the bandwagon. And also, like, the Mennonites didn't have to go as far to get there. So like Mexico was a really popular first destination for them, and a ton of Mennonites settled there. So Mexico's offer of state financed migration, which is kind of how like some AIs were describing it to me. And I'm like, what is state financed migration? The offer of state financed migration to Mennonites in the 1920s was not direct financial support in the form of cash payments or government-funded travel, but rather a comprehensive package of incentives and privileges designed to attract and facilitate Mennonite settlement. Here's how the Mexican government supported Mennonite migration. So one, they offered land access and sales at very favorable terms. So they're like, here's this big tract of land, like it's yours. We're going to make it easy. We're not going to, because buying land in foreign countries can be very difficult. I just want to lay that out there. So the Mexican government agreed to sell large tracts of land to Mennonite settlers at very reasonable prices, and specifically in northern states of Chihuahua and Durango, which is where you'll still see some of these populations. And that's because these were actually at the time, and we're talking 1920s, suffering from economic and demographic decline.
Really? Well, the 1920s did have a major demographic issue that we talked about before that was only really solved by the baby boom, which seems to have mostly been a result of improving medical technology.
Well, this specific one, especially in those regions, was resulting from the Mexican Revolution. But still, like, also, this is just to be clear, countries experiencing demographic decline and economic decline in regions or even universally is not a new concept. And immigration is like the first thing where they're like, let's just import the problem, like we'll import a solution. But then you just similar. Yeah, go ahead.
Solution. Mennonites are an action. If you're going to import a group like develop a region, Mennonites are a great group to import because they are pathologically pacifistic. While they will not acculturate into your culture, they also will not prey on your culture and attempt to take converts. They are a group that is pacifist, that won't seek converts, and will just grow and develop land and contribute economically.
Won't seek converts. Yeah, for the most part. We'll get into that.
We'll get into one instance in which they did convert giant population.
Two. So Mexico, similar to Canada, also offered the legal and social privileges that Mennonites really need to be able to settle somewhere. So through a formal agreement with President Alvaro Obregón, Mennonites were granted exemption from military service, very important, freedom to operate in their own schools and teach their own language, full religious liberty, the right to dispose of property as they wished, and no taxes for 100 years. There's some speculation about it, but that's a freaking huge draw.
Wait,
because I think they were just
taxes for 100 years for Mennonites?
Yeah. And I have 3 citations on that. I can give them to you if you want. Like this is documented. This is according to some accounts, but I mean, I bet that, at least some government officials were like, yeah, don't worry about it. Just don't pay taxes. There's such insular communities that I could see like them.
Yeah, let me guess. They like immediately went back on that after like a few decades.
Maybe. So here's another important thing though, is the government also provided military and police protection for Mennonite colonies when conflicts arose with local populations and bandits. So when they first came over in the 1920s, despite the Mennonites being pacifist, because they were going to fairly like Wild West regions, they even got protection from the government. And that's pretty big too. I mean, that's a wonderful privilege, but we'll see how that ended up. Beyond that, though, they had a political
in rural Mexico, not well.
I mean, but officials at both the local and federal levels often intervened to resolve land disputes in favor of Mennonites, sometimes using force to remove other claimants from lands that were purchased by Mennonites. So this is like, they were really going above and beyond to be like, nah, man, these dudes are going to like actually do something productive with this land. It's theirs. You are out. And this is their own citizens. So I think this is a really good illustration of how far a country or company that becomes a nation stakeholder will be a wingman for you if they think that you are desirable. Like, screw their citizens, they'll take you. And there's historical precedent for that. And then the government also viewed Mennonite agricultural expertise as a means to boost regional food production and economic stability. So they prioritized their settlement as part of broader national development goals. So that helps to explain why they did that. But so, I mean, as you can imagine, the primary reason why this like kind of unraveled in Mexico was that there's just like this explosion in gang violence in Mexico. So from 2012 to 2017 alone, an estimated 30,000 Mexican Mennonites relocated just to Canada. But a bunch of Mennonites also have emigrated from northern Mexico to safer regions within the country, such as Campeche, or abroad to countries like Belize, Paraguay, Argentina, and Bolivia. And the reason I fell down this rabbit hole in the first place was I watched this documentary on a Mennonite community that was quite conservative in northern Argentina. And I'm like, how the hell did these low Dutch speaking Mennonites who are clearly like of Polish origin in northern Argentina? I just like, it was so confusing to me, but now it all makes sense. And a bunch of these countries did the same thing in trying to attract Mennonites. So like,
everyone fighting
like
over
those
the
dudes.
But hold on. So now they come over from Canada, then they go to Mexico, then they go to Argentina.
Yeah. And again, so Argentina, Paraguay, Mexico, Bolivia, and Belize, all of them offered land grants. All of them offered military exemption, though in Argentina, that's just informal. All of them offered educational autonomy. And all of them, except for Argentina, offered formal privilegium. So the same thing that Canada started in the 1870s. So while there's no formal deal in Argentina, like basically off the books, they're totally autonomous. In Paraguay, they have more of a kind of sovereign state thing. They have embedded sovereignty, as it's explained.
That is fascinating.
Yeah, and so they're basically like they're
basically a charter
the Prospera. City. Yeah, they're a charter city.
Mennonite Prospera.
Yeah, Mennonite Prospera. And in Mexico, they had all those privileges, which are now eroding because basically the state can't even take care of its gang problem. But in Bolivia, they have large land holdings. And in Belize, they have lots of formal agreements. But here's what blew my mind, because I was like, okay, so I guess all the Mennonites now live mostly in South America, but that's not actually true.
No, actually, the two biggest out of the top 3 Mennonite countries, 2 of them are in Africa.
Yes, this blew my mind. So for very similar reasons to why South America was like, yeah, move down here, the Democratic Republic of the Congo and Ethiopia were both like, in response to the interests of some Mennonite missionaries, like, sure, come here as long as you develop infrastructure. We could use it. Very Belt and Road. Like, fine, come here. Like, I'm not going to do anything for you, but like, if you're going to build something, fine. What happened though was like, among the local population, a version of Anabaptism just kind of took off. And I thought, so I Googled like Mennonite community, Ethiopia. I was expecting to see like, you know, Ethiopian families in straw hats and, you know, because honestly, like the reason I clicked on the Argentinian Mennonite video on YouTube was the hats these girls wear are high fashion. They're couture. They look just so great. Like white brim, ribbon. I'm just,
well,
it was
okay,
everything.
hold on. I'll look this up. Argentinian Mennonite.
I was here for it. At least in this one documentary. It's just like this one community really just like nailed it. Chef's kiss kind of wear. But yeah, they more just wear, I would say.
Oh my God, these hats are awesome.
I know, right? I know. I'm like,
they're really good at hats.
Yeah.
They
like
say they are not a proud people. Me think they dress with a little too much pride.
Yeah, actually, I was watching another Mennonite on a YouTube video today talking about like permitted fabrics and clothing, like stuff that her mom would be cool with her getting and stuff that her mom would get mad about her getting. I love that everything was like filtered not through like, this is what my culture says. It's like what her mom would have let her buy. But she introduced the concept of something being fancy, and something that was fancy was too worldly. But those hats are fancy.
Yeah, they don't. They're far too fancy. Yeah,
they're extreme, but they're so good. Anyway, the Ethiopian Mennonite communities and the Democratic Republic of the Congo, they look much more like other Congolese
from their country. Yeah,
but coordinated Congolese. You know, like coordinated and that like family photo ready. You know, like so they're like pretty good. But anyway, yeah, Democratic Republic of the Congo. 235,000 Mennonites. Ethiopia, 224,000 Mennonites. Now, the United States has more with over 390 Mennonites. And then Canada has over 137 because they just screwed the pooch. India, and I haven't looked into this. I need to figure out what's going on here. Nearly 150. So 150,000. So that's more than Canada. And then in Paraguay, 33K, Mexico, 32K, Bolivia, 25K, Brazil, 12K. So like, it's really not that much in Latin America, but I think that just considering how difficult it is to migrate, like just the incentives, it's pretty impressive. So I just like
interesting that, actually. The Indian Mennonites, they dress like pretty like traditional Indians, I guess.
Oh, do they?
They are Indians.
Oh, like Ethiopian and whatever.
Yeah, they're like Ethiopian and African.
Yeah. I'd see the thing is like if I was converting to become a Mennonite, like 80% of it would be for the fashion.
Yeah, I'd be like, come on, what are you even doing?
You're not a Mennonite. You're missing the point. It's a sartorial choice. Whatever. You do you, I guess, you know. But I guess I can also see like the point isn't the particular style of clothing, it's that it is traditional clothing. So I mean, I get it, you know, don't be worldly. And it would be fancy to wear foreign clothing that is cool. True. So it is unanabaptist to do that. And I am just being sacrilegious, and this is why we're techno-Puritans. And
yeah, we're techno-Puritans. Our religion's gonna spread. It's gonna be the best. It's the best religion. If you haven't checked it out,
it's the best. Everyone knows it.
It's the best religion.
So this brings an end to our Mennonite soliloquy. We are now going to discuss basically places doing this in modern times, aside from just like Argentina and you know, these people trying to siphon off the Mexican refugees from, you know, the failure of Mexico to protect their precious Mennonite population. There is still lots of targeted immigration happening, or like targeted recruiting attempts happening on behalf of countries. And the funny thing is, Malcolm, you and I have been directly involved with two of them in terms of applying and being interested.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah, we have actually, the one in Chile.
That's right. Yeah. So Chile's startup program, it specifically targets tech entrepreneurs and digital nomads, and it offers startup funding and a streamlined visa process to build the company's reputation as a tech hub. And we actively applied to that. I don't know if we got in. I think we might have gotten in, but I refused to get in. I refused to go. Was that it?
Well, we got in, but we had gotten some other opportunity, and it just wasn't that much money and worth going. Because we would have to relocate to Chile for a while, and you were like, it's not worth it for the money they're giving us.
Yeah, I was like, no, Chile, you're not going to. And then we ended up in Peru. I didn't want to go to South America at all, but like, no. The future police, the agents of Providence wanted me there.
And you're going to South America, lady. I don't care that you didn't want to take that money.
Ireland and England have programs to attract teachers, remote workers, graduates with financial incentives and relocation payments. So they've done it too. Not as much. I also recall, speaking of English people, France really catching a lot of heat from its own citizens for changing its tax law to attract like billionaires from England. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
They were mad. But absolutely, like this again is targeted. It's like, what can we shift? What incentive will only draw in the desirable population? And as we saw with Mexico's alleged promise of no taxes for 100 years, which I love, that one of the ways is to be like, oh, for this tax bracket, this population, no taxes. So I think that's interesting. And then, so what's the other program that the other targeted immigration program that we flirted with?
Oh, it was Singapore we were recently looking at, was Balaji's company.
That's different. Yeah, I mean, that is, I would say, a really good example of, and he's referring to, what is it called? Network school or network university? Balaji's thing in Singapore.
In the process of applying. I haven't done the test yet because they want me to do it like
an IQ test. Yeah, which I'm
a genius. I don't need to do an IQ test. Just take my word for it.
They're going to be like, who is this potato named Simone that has attempted to...
I'm just not even going to try any math questions. I'm like, come on, guys.
Just, yeah, I finished one of them. I'm just very, like, I'm with a pen. They don't, yeah, anyway. People, someone commented on one of our recent videos that I'm very smart. They don't realize.
They said that? They said that Simone's smart?
Yeah, and I'm like,
I'm sorry to tell you this. My wife is basically retarded.
Yeah, I don't think basically. I think retard is the...
This is why it's not even offensive for us to use the term retard.
Yeah, it's okay for me to say it
because my wife is a retard.
I'm a retard. It's true. I can't even open doors. Malcolm knows this all too well.
And that is why every morning I wake up and I just look at her and I'm like, with disgust. And I'm like, get out of bed, you disgusting retard. And make me my effing money, and then make me dinner and care for my kids.
Because that's what retards do.
This is why she stays married to me, is because I've been able to train her into believing she's a retard.
It's called, let's see, I just want to make sure I get the name of it. Balaji's Island.
It's Network
Paradise.
School. My question for you is, what's this other one that we applied to? Because I don't remember.
Yeah, Network School. Anyway, but no, I do want to highlight the fact that Balaji is trying to build this network school on this island adjacent to Singapore in what I think is kind of a charter city. I'm not...
It's part of the Belt and Road Initiative.
Is it? But like it feels very much like what I expect this to look like in the future, which is these techno-feudal charter cities where you have specifically not like a collection of investors or an incorporation even, but like maybe you have those, but like they're led by a figurehead like Balaji, like a sort of Jesus-like figure.
Yeah.
Or like I could see Andrew Tate have one. I could see Jordan Peterson have one. I could see Elon Musk have one. I mean,
we'll have one eventually, Simone. You and I will have one.
That'd be pretty cool. We have our tundra one in the far north, our subterranean tundra charter city.
Make it miserable to live in.
Called Frostpunk. We just don't even get creative with it.
Yeah, right.
But no, so like I think it's really exciting to see that this is already here, that we're already starting to see targeted immigration. And to your point, right, we're just talking about how we applied to network school, and in addition to like submitting a pitch deck related to our startup initiative.
What's the other one we applied to? You said
I will tell you after we talk about this. So after doing that, the next stage of the application was literally taking an online IQ test with like the shape rotator questions, and the vocabulary questions and the math questions. So that is like they are only targeting top tier intellect that is also entrepreneurial. Like there's a very targeted population here. And if you are mid or a retard like me, you're going to get kicked out. Like you're not going to be accepted. And this again is this very targeted immigration. So tag this in your mind as you think about, how do I cultivate a population that has the keys to the kingdom? Anyway, the final one that you're forgetting about, and I think this is also important because this is an example of a contemporary that's been around for a decent amount of time now, private family-led targeted immigration program, not to a country, not to a broad region or a state, but literally just to a city. Tell me you're not remembering this.
Oh, Tulsa. Yeah, you're right.
Tulsa. Yeah. So there's the Tulsa Remote program. It offers 10,000.
They were so racist.
Well, we can talk about that, but they offer 10,000 as a grant to eligible individuals, only targeted people who are willing to relocate to the city and work remotely from there. The program is designed to attract remote workers from outside Oklahoma and help reverse population decline and brain drain by bringing in talented professionals. So what they're really looking for is like bougie dinks to go and live there. And
everything is framed around DEI. Everything is framed around.
That's what really turned us off. Yeah, we're like, wait, so you want us to come here, but then be second-class citizens? And like,
Yeah, no, they made it very clear. If you're white in Tulsa, you are a second-class citizen.
Yeah,
That is
it felt
what
odd.
like
Also they
relocating
did a
was
lot
about.
of things that felt very futuristic to attract families. Like you get like free access to this really nice co-working space. There are these like, bougie dink apartments that you can move to. They set us up in this gorgeous, cute boutique hotel that was all automated when we stayed, that overlooked this beautiful park and was right next to this. Oh my God. I was pregnant at the time. So they had this amazing Mexican restaurant. And you know how I'm always craving enchiladas. I can't even.
Yeah.
And they also have the most utopian, futuristic, over the top park that is like, I've never seen a park like this anywhere in the world. And we've been to a lot of incredible parks, but this park was like, am I in a sci-fi right now? Like, what is going on here? And it was all developed by this one really wealthy family that also is behind the Tulsa Remote program. That's just like, we're going to make Tulsa great again. And we're going to do this. But again, I think this is very similar to what we're going to see in the future, is these powerful families, these powerful people, these groups, these syndicates building city-states and saying, this is my land, this is my kingdom, this is my fiefdom. I want the right kind of people, and I'm going to be very generous to them if they come, and I'm going to attract them with all sorts of treats. So they will be charter cities. They will be network states. They will maybe, like you say, leverage countries' programs like Belt and Road or other like charter city legislation. And there's obviously like plenty of examples of these now, but they're getting off to a rocky start. And that rocky start is really helpful in enabling families to know what they can depend on in the future as an attractive family, and where they need to also protect themselves and sort of like always make sure they have their backs on something. So consider, for example, Prospera in Honduras, right? They are a charter city, and they have tax autonomy, labor autonomy, legal autonomy, and regulatory autonomy, which is why tons of cool medical experimentation is taking place there.
Yeah.
Anything from gene therapy to getting a chip inserted into your wrist that can open up your Tesla. That's just super fun. I just love it. It's so cool. But the problem is that when there was a regime change in Honduras, the next president, who was super socialist, was like, oh, I want to do this. And so there's all this like, who knows if I think now Prospera is suing Honduras for like 3 times its GDP or something, like some insane amount.
Yeah.
Because they're like, you broke your promise. But like, who knows how that's going to go? And that is a problem, is you have to feel confident that whatever you're setting up isn't just going to be like kneecapped by a regime change.
Should not set I would not set this up in Latin America. I would set this up 100% in a Northern European country.
Maybe. So I want to hear your thoughts on another charter city we really haven't engaged with much intellectually or logistically. I don't think we know anyone involved. There's the Dubai International Financial Center in the UAE. They're a financial free zone. So they have their own commercial law, they have their own courts and their own regulation. It's just sort of like this different kind of thing. What are your thoughts on like the Middle East for something like this? Do you just think they're too in-group favoring?
Well, like they are too in-group favoring, and I wouldn't want to live there, and I wouldn't trust them. Like if I was going to, the place that we looked at doing this, which has been leaked, is the Isle of Man.
Yeah.
Like that's a great place to assess. They're dealing with a major brain drain. They have a degree of autonomy. They're not even in the EU, but they're near all of that, so people could easily migrate.
It would be amazing. The Isle of Man would be amazing. Plus, it's our kind of weather. Overcast, kind of cool.
Oh, and then what's that one that Arya Babu wanted to target? That was a small island between the UK and France. Sark. Yeah. Sark or the Isle of Man is where I would be.
Dreamy. I mean, I would worry about Sark and severe weather. Isle of Man has the same problem, but like, no, totally in favor of those. I think another good example of like cautionary tales is Hong Kong, because they had their own legal and economic and immigration systems, but China's like, take backs.
It's under China.
Yeah. Then I think this is a really great example, is the special economic zone that was set up in Shenzhen in China, that just revolutionized China. And it's hard. So they offered regulatory and economic freedoms, but they did things that only China could do. I'm probably going to flub my attempt to very succinctly summarize this, but it used to be, before this zone was set up, that people couldn't just up and move from their local villages to work anywhere. And what changed with Shenzhen is that suddenly they were allowed to go work there. And this enabled this massive floating working population that would sweep into Shenzhen and work, and often like live in company towns, but on a sort of migrant labor basis. So their kids would stay at home with their parents and they would just work it to the point of, as we know from like the Foxconn suicide nets and everything, they'd work to the point of like their minds breaking, but make a ton of money that they would never make it home in their local village and go home every year for New Year's. And then eventually just go home to their families and like survive, like go back to life. But it enabled these huge like labor to sort of slosh around and respond to demand. And I think it's really interesting. It's an example of China using targeted immigration in its own way to sort of get value out of a population that wasn't really valuable to it before, because they were basically taking subsistence farmers and subsistence families and turning them into
wage slaves.
Yeah, like the force that enabled sort of Apple to become Apple, but also Apple to make China into the industrial powerhouse that it became during that period. And if you're interested in this, I think there's this author that wrote about how Apple and China sort of rose together. He recently
enslaved the Chinese people.
I mean, kind of, yeah. And then also there's
gone from the region, even though they should have a long time ago due to, risks, and they're freaking out over Trump's tariffs and everything. They don't have a plan. And everyone told them, get out of China, get out of China, get out of China, get out of China, get out of China.
And they're trying. And apparently the journalist who wrote this book, upon interviewing many people actively working at Apple, he thinks they're delusional, but Apple is actively trying to shift a ton of its production now to India. And while he thinks that they are being way overly optimistic about how quickly they can shift over, they are very intent on shifting away.
India is our friend. Trying. China is not.
I know, and they're trying. I'm just saying they're trying, Malcolm. So give them some credit. Not that we are huge Apple stans. I mean, I freaking love my Mac.
Yeah, whatever. Let Apple crumble, right? But I mean, I think America should always try to be growing ties with India, and India should work to drop its stupid neutrality thing.
Neutrality thing?
India is obsessed with trying to be neutral in global power struggles.
China's right there. What do you want them to do?
No. I mean, they're anti-China and neutral. Like, for example, they bought a ton of Russian oil during the Ukraine conflict, right? Like they
need the oil.
During the communist versus capitalist thing of that period, they never really became a client of the US. They always tried to play the US and the USSR off each other. And while it sounds smart, look at where you are now, India. It clearly hasn't worked out for you. Choose a side.
Yeah.
America will work with you and China will turn you. Well, it's not great what China does to the people who try to befriend China.
I mean, yeah. Anyway, these are just some of the examples, but I think we're going to see a lot more of this. So as demographic collapse plays out, even though immigration is not the answer, people are totally going to turn to immigration, and we should be exploiting that to our advantage. So how do you become an it girl population? And people are
how do you become an it girl population? What's
how
your
do you become that girl? Well, I think the big things is create jobs, generate tax revenue by making money, buy from the local economy, build infrastructure, and produce useful products like agriculture, like develop the area. And I think, doing things like that would be great. That's why we're so obsessed with building a no holds barred medical research community that brings in medical tourism, that brings in academic researchers, that sort of becomes this essential place for the wealthy and resourced to get experimental medical procedures that they can't get anywhere else, that fosters academic research. But I mean, there are lots of different specialties you can have that do that. And also just becoming entrepreneurial and knowing how to generate tax revenue and both contribute to and hire from the local economy. I mean, like, obviously one way to generate tax revenue is to make money yourself, but another way to generate tax revenue is to bring jobs to a population, sort of have this, like, if you build your fiefdom and then there's these villages around you that are selling to you and buying from you, then, the country benefits even more, or the larger area that's attracting you benefits you even more. So I think that's a really big thing, but that it's not just about being attractive. And I think this is an equally important part of this equation that people need to be looking at and talking about, that they're not talking about, which is, what do you do when there's a regime change? What do you do about your personal safety? And what do you do when these countries can no longer handle basic things like not only security, but also maintaining infrastructure.
Well, I mean, if you look at what's happening in Peru right now, people are like Amish and Mennonites are destroying the Peruvian Amazon and stuff like that, right? Like they're
like the
deforestation claims and stuff, right? Like
if
you let the wokes get too much power, you got to run again.
And you see, you want to choose. So I don't know how much you can choose or predict the continued friendliness of an area. Probably the more isolated you are in an area and the less desirable that area is going to be. Like, we've always had this theory that if we were going to build a fiefdom or a city state or a charter city, it would be somewhere that's not desirable, that isn't going to be where suddenly people are like, okay, now it's mine, you've developed it, now I'm going to take it.
I mean, that's why we were looking at Sark and the Isle of Man. These are areas where you can actually do a degree of farming, but it requires technological intervention, right?
And they're not like oil rich. There are not huge reasons why people are going to want to go there for natural resources. So I think that's also really important.
It's surrounded by unstable governments that are going to change their mind in a day.
They're also more defensible. You're less likely to have like roving gangs because they are literal islands. So the island part is good. Though I like even more. I mean, Canada's is attractive insofar as, aside from maybe interest in oil or logging, like there's just not that much, desire to settle there, I think. But I think a lot of it is, if you can control your own energy production and defense, you are in a much better position than just a group that happens to be very economically productive. Does that make sense?
Oh, no, I completely agree. You've got to eventually get to energy production and defense.
Well, and I'm hoping that small scale nuclear just becomes a thing. And so just, your compound is going to have its little reactor and you're fine. You don't need to depend on,
I agree.
And I think when we look, someday we will turn our eyes again to investing in companies and technologies that enable sovereignty from a technological standpoint. So like AI systems or other systems that enable any independent group that decides to organize and settle land to, like, with a lot of help, like maybe with the help of drones and a couple of types of robots and a bunch of AI, like sort of preloaded to help to set this up, like a kit to set up small scale nuclear septic systems, like a well insulated settlements, maybe connected by tunnels, things like that like just will work pretty much anywhere. And then some permaculture that works with the local environment. Like I really want to invest in technologies like this, because as much as I appreciate what AI doomers are attempting to do to like prevent things from happening, like the more we can enable people to live off the grid successfully in communities and be independent and take care of each other, the more I think humanitarian crises
we're going to be able to build in safety.
So I think that's really important.
I'm so excited you brought this to everyone's attention, Simone. This is a
Mennonites.
fascinating topic, because did you read about where this was happening in Korea, by the way? Because I had mentioned that in Korea they're doing this a lot more.
Where?
Oh, no. So one of the phenomena in Korea is they keep doing these programs to try to get people to new regions, because obviously they have this massive depopulation problem.
No, this is also happening in Italy, Greece, Switzerland, but this is for like internal citizens. So it's less interesting to me.
Yeah, where they'll change what they're offering people to get them to move to a new part of Korea, and then everybody moves there, and then they'll change what they're offering again, and then all the people who just moved to the new region move to wherever the best benefits are.
So it's as if we as a couple had like done Startup Chile, but then we moved to Tulsa, Oklahoma, but then stayed there for the requisite year, and then moved to like somewhere.
Just
wherever else we got the next
wherever's
incentive.
Offering the best benefits.
Just incentive chasers. Yeah, but I bet there will be those, like, just sort of, you could call them like mercenary it girl populations that just like go to the highest bidder at any given time.
Yeah, and they're just like, oh, we'll be high popular, we'll have a ton of kids, and we'll just go to whoever is giving us the best benefits at the time, and that's what we're seeing in Korea right now.
I just wonder if you could kind of think of Jews as that kind of population. That like a lot of countries had.
If by best benefits you mean least killing them, I guess.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, there are various ways to look at this, Malcolm. I mean, also like maybe the best benefit we're going to get from various city states is like we won't
even kill you.
I know, but like I don't know, that there's the fun timeline and there's the dark timeline. Not to be.
Yeah. No, I absolutely hear you. So Yeah. Well, in Korea, a lot of people know that we did an episode on this. When I first saw this number, I was like, this is wild. 1 in 4 men in rural Korea has married a non-Korean woman, imported their wife who's married. Like,
is there a big gender differential, or is it just that like all the women are choosing to be single in
women
Korea?
are choosing to be single and overly picky in Korea, and men are just like, okay, I'll marry a foreigner, and that is how the Korean population is replacing.
I mean, okay, maybe you're not giving women the benefit of the doubt though, because one of the big issues in Korea and in other countries that have developed more quickly than Western companies,
these men are more misogynist.
More misogynistic in that they have sort of double standards for women. Like, yeah, we're going to be a dual income household, but also you're going to do all the child rearing, right?
Yeah.
Which is not, so I mean, of course they're going to go to women who are willing to do that, but those women who are doing that also aren't going to be as educated and aren't going to make that money.
I guess that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's not all on the men. It's on everyone. It's on.
You're so kind and magnanimous, Simone.
Magnanimous. That's a good word.
So what are we doing tonight? Warmed up Penang? You made it great
Pineapple this time.
Oh, go heavy on the pineapple, but cut it smaller than the way you normally cut it, so we could get.
Do you want it confetti small, or do you want it like?
Not confetti small, just like a quarter the size of those giant chunks.
Okay.
And what would I want for? I definitely do not want that rice again. Whatever that rice was.
Oh no, because I froze a bunch of it. I know. You kept talking to the journalist, and I just kept slicing and zesting lemons, and it just kept going into the rice cooker. It just didn't stop. It wasn't that bad. I tried some. It's fine.
No, it is that bad. If you want to eat it, you can eat it. If you want me to eat something, I could just eat the Penang directly, or we can try dumplings.
I have rice. I guess I just have to throw away. It's sad.
Well, give me other rice, okay? Or maybe it will taste good with something other than Penang. But right now, it just tastes like ultra lemony.
Yeah, it's good for you, Malcolm.
But we could try like dumplings or something with Penang. I think would work really well.
I have rice. I have other rice.
Okay, plain rice. That works.
Okay. All right.
You made great Penang, by the way. And when you reheat it, also put in a bit more spice. Obviously, we were trying to make it bland for the journalists.
I mean, Germany's not known for...
We told him that we're glad the German people are going extinct. So,
although I think he maybe identifies more as Swiss, because he talked about growing up in Switzerland, but also like Swiss food. Do you remember Swiss food? It was like...
It was
what flavor of bland do you want? Do you want fish flavor of bland, or do you want like beef flavor?
Yeah. Oh my god.
Yeah, that was a thing.
The bland police.
Well, yeah. Don't be too loud, and don't you dare.
We got in trouble so many times
about doing your laundry on a Sunday.
No. Do you remember we kept having people call like on me for laughing too loud? Like
someone just knocked on our hotel room because they were like, "You should."
They called the management. They're like, "Stop laughing! You're laughing too loud." Yeah. And I was like, "What the heck? Are you the saddest country on earth?"
Yeah, no, don't laugh. Don't do laundry on Sundays. Don't.
But I think this shows like who we are as a family. It's not like you're beating your wife too much. You're laughing.
Also, like, what kind of delicate snowflake do you have to be to not handle noise? Like, are these just all extremely like sensory sensitive autists? I really struggle.
No. I think it's that they hate other people being happy. I do not think it's a noise thing.
Weigh in the comments if you understand why it is that Swiss people hate fun.
Why do they hate the fact that Malcolm, poor little Malcolm here, just laughs and laughs, and they say, "You can't laugh like that. You laugh too loud, you stupid American." And I say, "Well, you're stupid because I'm having fun and you're going to die alone and sad." Sorry, maybe that's I
mean, whatever.
All right.
Make their watches. By the way, just in terms of good food, you need to know this, although you'll never watch it. There is literally a genre on Instagram. Like, there are multiple accounts that have a lot of likes, like a lot. Like, one post will get 320,000 likes. Who knows how many views they're getting? Okay. That only shows people going around to buffets, and often like office buffets, but also random buffets, wedding buffets in South Korea, and just filling their plate.
Buffets in South Korea? No, yeah. Hold on, that's different. I've had wedding buffets in South Korea.
Bread buffets, wedding buffets, work office buffets.
Oh yeah,
and it just goes from like tray to tray. And then you just see a hand loading up a plate, and you're just like, it is a good genre. Like, of all the random, there's the restock. There's
the have like a huge problem when you're in Korea which is that so the Korean people are a thrifty bunch, okay? And so what this means is that when they go to all-you-can-eat buffets, there are specific meals that they know cost more to make. And so buffets will always load up on these, and a lot of these are like big crab meals. So it's like everything at the buffet is ignored, but this one thing that like all the Koreans recognize is the best cost to stomach space ratio at the buffet, and everyone is just getting that. And I'm like, come on, guys, it's like defeats the purpose of a buffet.
Well, the Instagram genre, I assure you, they just go to every single tray and load up a little bit. So you get to see everything. They label everything. It all looks amazing.
You are an absolute princess. And by the way, if you were wondering, I was cleaning out the cracks on my mouse. It was my little thing here for
is that really what the people need to see, Malcolm?
Well, that's why I was looking down. They're probably wondering, why is he looking down? And my mouse was getting dirty, so I wanted to clean it.
I mean, I'm in favor of a clean mouth. I love that our kids are hooked on toothbrushes right now. I never want that to be a fight. Yeah. Anyway, okay. I love you.
Yes.
Goodbye.
Simone, you are amazing. Bye.
Good day.
Good day.
Good day.
You retard.
Okay. News for me.
Oh yeah, it's just well, Vibe Camp is 4 weeks away. If I wanted to drive down to Maryland again.
Are we driving up to Maryland?
Maryland is below us, sweetheart. Maryland's right next to DC.
Oh yeah, New York's above us. Geography. You can too.
On the longest day of the year. That sounds great. You can't.
It's the most evil day to us with our reverse seasonal affective disorder. Always for me, summer solstice, I'm like, this is the evil day. Winter solstice, I'm like, no, it's only going to get longer from here. But it's a beautiful, blessed day.
They jump into solstice rituals, musical battles, impromptu debates on AI philosophy, folk dance, handicrafts, and mind-expanding quests. All of it oriented around connecting with others, wandering around strange paths of the soul. Meme and myth collide, and something new and magical will be born. Oh, and there's also recreational waterboarding. Oh, I bet Ayla will be doing that.
Do you think so? Oh,
we should ask Ayla if she's
Vibe Camp, because I mean, she's going to be less online.
She was at Vibe Camp last year, but I didn't like talk to her much because it felt like trying to walk up to like the main celebrity of the event.
Yeah, no, she's busy and important.
Yeah, no, very busy and important. No, she's always like open with us, but she is, a lot of people have demands on her time. Oh, and who else did I meet the last time I went? Is I ended up playing board games.
A tabletop game with Robin Hanson.
Yeah, Robin Hanson
and friends and company. But that was 2 years ago, Malcolm. I don't think you went last year.
Yeah, I'm not even.
That involves crowds of people and being outside.
What if somebody
things we don't
talks to me or touches me? Like, I definitely don't want to risk making a friend.
It would be unfavorable. And there is a lot of touching at Vibe Camp. There's a lot of like, do you remember like there's like a stretching, sparring? Yeah, a lot of touchy feeling, mystical kind of stuff.
Yeah, no, these are people very into indulging in alternative outlets for their sexual desires that they contextualize as non-sexual or adjacent to sexual, but not passing sexual norms within the community. And I've always found that to be super gross. Somebody's like, well, and like, it's just a cuddle party or something. It's like, how is that not infinitely worse than just having sex?
Well, imagine though, and just how toxic it was for me to be raised in an environment like that, where I was like raised in an environment where cuddling and all of this was like really normalized, and I was fully convinced that none of it had any sexual insinuations, that nudity, cuddling, all of that was like 100% just natural, and that it wouldn't confuse people.
Wait, so did you ever go to like a cuddle party? Would you ever have indulged in that?
There were instances in groups of people where like everyone was cuddling, and I'm like, I guess I have to like snuggle in, or like, yeah. And then this led to people getting the wrong idea about me. And like, it just, it doesn't produce good results. I don't like it. Also, I don't like touching people. So like, these are very,
you're glad that you get to live with me, who's like,
not my bag. Yeah. All right, shall we?
All right. Now, what is the interesting thing you're going to say?
I read you the hook and you were like, that sounds good.
Okay, great.
Let's go. All right.
Jesus.
Toasty, what are you doing?